Hey guys, here remember the season premiere of Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 1, The Red Woman. I was definitely looking forward to this premiere. I mean, I was pretty hyped for it. As you guys know, last year's finale was really depressing, and there was a lot of deaths and unanswered questions, and I was really just hoping that this episode would tie up some of those loose ends, explain some of the things that happened, and this episode not only did just that, it was not at all a setup episode, because there were actually significant deaths in this episode. There were some very crazy scenes, and definitely Game of Thrones is not messing around this season. I mean, you can tell that there are going to be some big deaths happening. There are going to be some wars. I mean, the poster of this season is everyone's eventually going to die. There's a reason why that's the poster for this season, because I think this implies that really no one is safe this season. I mean, no one has been safe in general, but especially this season, no one is safe. And let's just get into this episode, because there's a lot to get into, obviously. Of course, the big question we all had is Jon Snow really dead? And I love that right away they answer that question, because that was the thing that everyone was wondering about. We see right away, and I love the way they did. We zoom in on Jon Snow's lifeless corpse, and Ghost howls and chews at his door. And Davos hears and walks outside to investigate. He finds Jon in the snow, and Dolores, Ed, and others of the Night's Watch pour outside, find him as well. Davos has them carry him inside, and they lay him on a table, examine his wounds, and Ed knows that Thorne must be responsible, which, of course, Thorne was. Well, mainly it was Ollie that did it, but Thorne was a big part of who orchestrated it, and Davos asks how many of the Night's Watch they can trust, and Ed says only those in this room, and, they only trust the Night's Watch in the room, because many of the Night's Watch, as we know, they stabbed Jon Snow. But like I've said before, is it really a bad thing they did that? I mean, we know that Jon Snow wasn't exactly loyal to the Watch, mainly because he wanted to ally with the Wildlings against the Watch, and did it anyway because they didn't tell him to. That's why he was murdered, because he betrayed them. And really, I mean, Davos, and Davos does not, Ed does not know the half of it, definitely. So Ed says only those in the room. Melisandre comes to the door looking for Davos and walks inside to find Jon's body. And she says she saw him in the flames fighting at Winterfell. And basically, she can't believe that he's actually dead, because, she saw him in the flames and he was fighting, and she thought that he was just, fighting. And there's commotion in the halls. The Night's Watch discuss Jon's death. They can't believe that he's actually dead, and they don't really want to believe that he's dead, which I think we as well didn't want to believe he's dead. One of the things I love about Jon Snow's death is that everyone thinks that he's going to come back to life, and that there's a way to bring him back. Game of Thrones is not that kind of show. Give me one time Game of Thrones has ever killed someone and brought them back. It's never happened, and I don't think it's going to happen now. Game of Thrones is the show where we have significant deaths, and we need to get over them, and it's very much like what happened when Eddard Stark died. It's very much what happened when the Red Wedding happened. They died, we needed to get over it, and that's exactly what happens with Jon Snow. Jon Snow was a great character, but honestly, I don't really know what else they could have done with them. So honestly, I think the best choice to do was to kill him. I'm glad that they actually stuck with that and not try to resurrect him. Because shows like The Walking Dead, where they have supposedly, killed off characters and haven't, that's really been annoying. And for me, when a show resurrects a character and they've never done that before, that's when I can no longer take the show seriously, and that's when the sign the show's going downhill. Well, this shows that Game of Thrones is not going downhill anytime soon, and Game of Thrones has yet to go downhill for me. I mean, I know some people weren't a fan of last season as much. I love last season, and I think this season's going to be incredible, but, Game of Thrones is definitely not going down anytime soon. So Thorne owes up to killing Jon. He admits that it was him that did, and I like that he did it, because he had a significant reason for doing it. He says, along with the other officers, Thorne pleads his case, saying loyalty is what the Watch was built on, that he never disobeyed an order, and that by allowing the Wildlings inside, Jon was destroying the Night's Watch, basically. Because of Jon, wanting to ally with the Wildlings, he was the one that was going to destroy them, and he would break that loyalty. He wasn't loyal to them. They had to kill him. They just had to do it, and I like that he explained that we didn't do it because, we had something against Jon. It was just we could no longer trust him. He wasn't loyal to, our alliance, so he wasn't loyal to the Watch, so we had to kill him, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, we know last season at this time, Jon Snow was abusing his power. He was abusing his power, and, he was too nice. I've said before, Jon Snow is just too nice. He's a nice guy, but that's really, you can't be a nice guy in this world. In this world, you kind of have to do things within a certain reach. You can be nice, but you have to do it to an extent, and Jon Snow didn't have that extent. He didn't feel like he had that extent. He felt that he was beyond limits. He felt that he was beyond measures, and of course he wasn't. So Ed wants to go looking for revenge, but Davos cautions them against picking a fight that they can't win, because, it's him against all these other Night's Watch. It's part of their group, and in many ways, they should be thanking them. And Ed's prepared to die today as long as Thorne goes down with them. Davos suggests they can fight and live if they seek the aid of the Wildlings, and that maybe they do need to get the Wildlings on their their side. John wanted it, so maybe the best thing to do is to get them on their side. But I like that Ed knows that they're pretty much going to die. I mean, we know what happened with them when they had to face those White Walkers. I mean, they're really powerful, as we know. We saw from episode 8 how powerful they are, and that they weren't able to take out the White Walkers, and they did take out the White Walkers then. But without Jon Snow, though, they're not really as powerful. Jon Snow was a very powerful man, and losing him is a real detriment to the group. And I like that Ed is saying, look, we're probably going to die, and we're not going to come back from this. But I like that Davos kind of wants to move forward, which is very interesting. So, at Winterfell, Ramsay mourns the loss of Miranda over her corpse and vows revenge. And of course, Ramsay is pretty much, he's not in a very good position, which is awesome to see that Ramsay's not in a good position. But as we know, Sansa and, Theon, they ended up, throwing Miranda over that thing. And he obviously wants revenge. And when asked if Ramsay wants Miranda buried, or burned, he orders her fed to the hounds. Which, again, it just shows how disgusting and just gross Ramsay really is. I mean, we remember how disgusting he is. We remember what he did to Sansa. He's not any, better than he was last season. He's still a disgusting person. He's still a vile, disgusting human being who needs to die. And I hope he dies this season. I think he's gonna die this season. But we do have a villain, and we need a villain. And I think, we have our two central villains this season. We have Ramsay and we have Ellaria, which we'll get into Ellaria later because that's crazy. So Ramsay's father congratulates Ramsay on defeating Stannis, and it's clear he's angry that Ramsay lost Sansa and Theon because, they needed Sansa, and Ramsay was the one, we know that Ramsay's father was the one that basically endorsed the marriage between Sansa and Ramsay. He was the one that wanted it, and that Ramsay didn't necessarily want it. I'm not condoning what Ramsay was doing. Ramsay's still a vile human being, but Ramsay didn't really want this marriage. He just wanted power out of it, and that his father convinced him he would have. And we know that Ramsay is also so vile because of his father, and that his father, constantly is beating on him, and he still is beating on him here, and is really upset about that. We do know that they killed Stannis, which I'm very happy about. And even though, yes, we didn't see it on screen, we didn't need to because that was more about Brienne's victory rather than actually killing Stannis. And he's also upset they lost Theon, aka Reek, and squandered their opportunity to unify the North because they didn't get to succeed their mission. And Ramsay says that he sent his best men and dogs after them. His father reminds Ramsay that they need an heir, and that's something that, that's something that they need. They need someone to take Ramsay's place if something bad happens to Ramsay, because pretty much everyone thinks that they're going to die in this episode. And they need someone to, I'm pretty sure they want this heir, not just so they have an extra ally, but also who's going to take over for Ramsay if something happens to him. They need an heir, and Sansa was the one that would have given him children. It makes sense why Ramsay tried to rape her. I'm not condoning the Ramsay rape scene last season. Obviously, it was very hard to watch, crazy stuff, but, the part of that was because Ramsay needed an heir, and he kind of went to extensive measures to get that heir. So Sansa and Theon run through the snowy woods outside of Winterfell. They can hear Ramsay's dogs following. It's a very crazy scene, and as we know, winter has came, and we know what happens when winters come, which I love that the season takes place in winter, because that alone shows that they're not playing around this season. We know what happens when winters come. Ever since the first episode of the show was called Winter is Coming. We know what happens when winter arrives. Bad shit happens. There are armies that break out, and they can hear Ramsay's dogs following. They come to a river they need to cross, but the water is freezing, and I said last season that Sansa and Theon were in the best position. Definitely not. I mean, they're definitely headed to King's Landing. Like I said, is the best place. But, I think King's Landing is the safest place right now. But the getting there is going to be very rough. And you can definitely see that here. Sansa is reluctant, but Theon convinced her it's the only way. They wade through the water. On the other side, they take shelter under a fallen tree. Theon hugs Sansa and tries to warm her. They hear the dogs coming close. Theon says he will draw their attention and tells Sansa to head north and find Jon at the wall. Of course, they don't know that Jon is dead. And Theon faces the Bolton men, which Sansa doesn't have that black dark hair anymore, which I thought was interesting, and he lies and tells them that Sansa's dead, which I thought was the safest thing to do, but they don't believe, and they know that Sansa's definitely not dead, but I do like that Theon is protecting his sister. I mean, when push comes to shove, he is going to protect her, and the dogs sniff out Sansa. They find her under the tree. The men begin pulling Sansa up when Brienne and Pod rise up and begin fighting them. Brienne kills one on her first pass, but is knocked off her horse. Crazy scene. I mean, this is the first episode of the season. It's already crazy. Pod kills one, but he is unhorsed, and he fights off another. And I like that Brienne and Pod pretty much are working together at this point, because we know that a lot of last season was Pod trying to prove his worth to Brienne, that he can be trusted, and you can see that these two really do have a newfound trust of each other. So Pod kills one, but is unhorsed. He fights off another while Brienne takes the rest down on foot. The last man has pawed down, but Theon stabs the man from behind. Sansa stands and Brienne lays down her sword in front of her, and once again offers her service to her, swearing by the old gods and the new, and Sansa accepts, with Pod reminding her of the proper words to the oath. So it seems like Brienne has actually, we know that Brienne's mission has been recruit the Starks, make sure the Starks are okay, get them back to, a safe location, and that's exactly what she wants to do. So she has Sansa, now she needs Arya, and that's probably won't be as easy, because as we know, the situation that Arya's in, which we'll get into later, not yet, but we will get into that. So I love that scene, really crazy stuff, and let's talk about Cersei, because you guys know I'm not a fan of Cersei. This season I could actually become a fan of Cersei, because she's losing, and I genuinely feel bad for her. I mean, the stuff that she dealt with in this episode, and where she's headed this season, maybe Cersei is learning who she is, because of what she says this season. Maybe she is starting to understand, if Cersei becomes empowered again, yes, I do think she can get power hungry. That's just who Cersei is. She's very powerful. She's very power hungry. She's narcissistic in that way. But because she's losing, I might honestly care for Cersei this season. I might actually really enjoy her character this season. And I think Lena Headey, I think her name is, she really sold it in this scene, definitely. Cersei summoned to the harbor upon Jaime's return from Dorne, and it's a very somber scene because she sees that Jaime's back, but Myrcella is not. She doesn't know what happened to Myrcella, but she just knows that Jaime is back, and she sees him coming to shore with Myrcella's corpse, and she sees Myrcella's dead. It's very sad to watch, but, we knew that Myrcella died, obviously. She was poisoned, and she's dead, and later Cersei asked Jaime about the first time they saw a dead body, their mother, and it's a very somber scene, and I really like the scene. She remembers that the body beginning to decay, and this turns to mourning for Myrcella, and remembering how she was so sweet and good, unlike Cersei herself. And I like that Cersei pointed out that she really is this powerful, selfish woman, and that's exactly what Myrcella wasn't. She was kind and she was sweet, and Jaime blames himself for Myrcella's death. And of course, the saddest thing about that is that, that was right when he revealed to Myrcella that he was her father, and he really blames himself for doing that. But Cersei tells him about the witch's prophecy, and Jaime, however, isn't one for prophecy or fate, and vows revenge on anyone who has hurt them. He doesn't think this is just fate that did this. He thinks that there was a genuine reason for this to happen. Now, we know this was El Araya. We know that El Araya was the reason that this happened, that El Araya was the one that poisoned Myrcella. At least I think we are to assume that El Araya was the one that did this. We know that what she said with Jaime was bullshit, and we know that she's out for revenge. And El Araya seems like they're building her up to be the villain of this season, definitely. I mean, the way that all this is going, between Ramsay and El Araya, those two are definitely the big threats of this season, and I like that. I mean, they're both very powerful, they're both very menacing, and I think they really showed that very well here. So we see a scepter reads from the book of the... So I really did love that scene. We don't get any more scenes between Cersei and Jaime, but it really does show the impending doom and kind of that they need to build themselves up. This is one of the first times that the Lannisters are losing, and they really aren't doing well at all at this point. They're losing. They, have lost a lot. They've, Cersei, between Cersei having to, be shamed and Jaime have to lose their daughter, they're really losing a lot. And they really need to build up that confidence that they once had. And I don't really know if they're going to get that back, but we'll have to see. So a scepter reads from the Book of the Seven to Margaery in her cell, and Margaery asks to see her brother, but the Septa simply demands a confession, and the High Sparrow enters the cell and sends the Septa away, and she asks about her brother again, but the High Septa wants to speak about Margaery's husband and how he misses her, and Margaery says she has nothing to confess, and High Septon asks if she is perfect and without sin, which of course we know that Margaery's not. She's done things. He says she started down a path but has many miles to go, and that, while she hasn't done anything wrong yet, there are bad things. She's not completely perfect. She has done some things here and there, and she wants to be obviously let go, but we don't really know what's going to happen here, if he's going to let her go. Definitely that's going to be very interesting. I mean, we know that Margaery has been in prison for a while. I can't remember exactly last season when she was in prison, but she was in prison fairly early last season, and ever since then, she's been in prison. So, very interesting stuff going on there. I'm definitely interested in seeing if Margaery's going to break out of there. So, in the water gardens of Dorne, El Araya walks in with Doran, and Doran remembers his brother and how his brother truly lived while Doran was busy lying at home. And El Araya notes that Doran would have been a terrible adventurer, an Oberyn an awful ruler. And Doran receives a message of informing him of Myrcella's death. And Tyene kills Arya with a dagger to the back, and El Araya stabs Doran through the chest while the guards watch. She calls him weak and says weak men will never rule Dorne again. Doran's dead. She literally just killed Doran right then, and I think not only is that showing that they're not playing around, but it also shows that El Araya is definitely going to get her revenge on anyone she can. Anyone that's allied with the Lannisters, anyone that's on that side that she does not like, anyone that she feels needs to go, they're going to go. She's not going to hesitate. She's just going to kill them right then and there, and I think it was very well done. I love the way that scene was done. El Araya, I don't want to say is a badass because she's really... I mean, she's not Ramsay. she's not Ramsay. You can understand why she wants revenge. You do understand why she's, wants revenge and why she wants this to get done. You understand that, and I think they showed that very well in this episode. But at the same time, I mean, she's hungry for revenge, and anyone that gets in her way, she will kill. Definitely, you see that here. So Nymeria and Oberyn find Trystane in his chamber. They make no pretense about about what they're here to do. There's no build up here. They say right here, which one of us do you want to kill you? And Trystane challenges Nymeria, but Oberyn stabs him through the back of the skull with her spear, and they've killed him. So not only has Ellaria killed Doran, now Trystane is dead, which it makes sense why Trystane died, because obviously he was going to get married to Myrcella. You kill Myrcella, you have to kill Trystane. You just had to do that, and I love Nymeria's line to Oberyn when she's like, you really do enjoy doing that, do you? I thought that was a very funny line. Obviously, she's like, you really do take pleasure in killing. I thought that was interesting the way she said that. I thought it was kind of funny as well, but definitely really crazy stuff. 2 deaths in a row back to back, and that was really crazy to see. I don't really think we've ever had 2 deaths back to back. I mean, we've had the Red Wedding, obviously, but not 2 deaths back to back like that. That was crazy, especially in a season premiere. It's never been this crazy. So Varys and Tyrion walk through the streets of Meereen, and Tyrion offers some coin to a beggar woman to feed her baby. Now, this was definitely one of the storylines I was most looking forward to, because as we know, Daenerys basically gave Tyrion this proposition that you can take over for me, because I don't really want to do this anymore, and I kind of want you to take over. And his Valyrian is bad, and she thinks he wants to eat the baby. Varys clarifies they come across a man trying to rally the former slaves to fight for themselves now that Daenerys is gone. And Varys points out that the Sons of the Heartbeat are taking orders from someone, and says he sent his little birds to find out who it is. A bell rings, and a group of people run through the streets. Varys and Tyrion go to where they're running from and find Daenerys' fleet of ships burning in the harbor. Why is this happening? We don't know, but Daario and Jorah ride through the plains. They find a ram skeleton that's been melted by a dragon. They wonder where Daenerys got to, and Daario asks why Jorah keeps coming back into Daenerys, because we know that Daenerys has nothing to do with Jorah, and they both remark on how they'd like to live long enough to see the world. And when Daenerys is done conquering it, Jorah takes a moment to look at the grayscale growing on his arm, and we know what this grayscale does to. I mean, we know what happened to what was her name? Stannis' daughter last season, Shireen. We know what happened to Shireen because of the grayscale, and, Jorah is getting this grayscale, and it's going to get really bad. We'll have to see. We've known this for a while, that Jorah got that grayscale, and it's definitely going to get really bad. We'll have to see what happens with that. But they find an area that shows the evidence of a and we know when you get that grayscale, you're going to die. So they find an area that shows evidence of a Dothraki Khaleesi that having been there recently. And Jorah finds Daenerys' ring on the ground and realizes that the Dothraki must have her, and that's exactly what happens here. For the first time, we really do see Daenerys weak. I mean, we've seen Daenerys weak before, but in the first time in a while, I think the last time was when her brother abused her and all that stuff, but basically, the Khaleesi rise through the barren plains. Daenerys is bound and walking by the Khal's blood riders, who harass her as she goes, not realizing that she speaks Dothraki. And the Khaleesi sets up camp by a watering hole. The blood riders bring Daenerys to Khal Morro, and Daenerys introduces herself in Dothraki with all of her titles listed. Morro tells her she's nobody and that she will lie with her that night and give him a son. And basically, he wants an heir. That's what he wants. And she says she will not lie with him or bear children for anyone, recounting what she was told when her child was lost. She then tells Morro that she was Drogo's wife, and he says touching Drogo's is forbidden, and gives his word to protect her, cuts her binds. She wants to be brought back to Meereen, but he says that Khal's widow must be brought to Vaes Dothrak to live out her days, and it's clear that she's gonna have to stay there for a while. I don't know in what way, but definitely Daenerys is gonna be there for a while. I don't think she's gonna get killed, but they basically gave it to her straight. You need to have a child with me, and then you're free to go. So we'll have to see what happens there, but I don't necessarily think that's all what it's going to be. I think there's more intent there. I don't really know what it is, but I definitely feel there's more going on than Daenerys thinks there is. So then we get to one of the most tragic things. I mean, you guys remember, I still didn't clearly understand how Arya got blind, and they don't necessarily, explain it in this episode. What they do is basically show how it's going to be. We see Arya, she's still blind, she begs in the streets, and the waif finds her, 2 staffs in hand. She tosses one to Arya, tells her to stand and fight, and then attacks her. Arya flails the staff wildly, but the waif easily beats on her. She tells Arya that she'll see her tomorrow and walks away, and you can tell this is really a challenge for Arya. I mean, even though she's blind, she still is doing what she needs to do. She's fighting, she's taking down the waif, and we know that whole training thing is over, and basically, we don't really know what's happening with Arya, how she got blind, everything, but I don't really know where Arya's head. We'll have to see what happens here, but this is definitely very interesting, seeing Arya blind, vulnerable like this. I mean, we know that Brienne's eventually going to get to her, but because Arya's blind, I mean, is she even going to know it's Brienne? I mean, she's blind, so she can't really see it's Brienne unless she hears her voice, so we'll have to see what happens with that. It's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see how that all turns out. So, Thorne's men have Davos' room surrounded. Thorne knocks on the door, claiming that there is no cause to fight. He's willing to grant amnesty to any black brother who throws down their arms and will allow Davos to leave. Davos asks for months to survive the trip south. He gives them until nightfall to make a decision, and basically, Davos cautions the men that Thorne will kill them all anyway. Davos says that they need Melisandre. That's what they need, because obviously Melisandre can help them. I mean, we know that she can resurrect people. We don't know if she can necessarily resurrect Jon Snow, but, you know, definitely I think this is very interesting that they need Melisandre, and basically we know that they need her. We'll have to see what happens with that. So then we get this scene at the end, which I thought not only added to Melisandre's character and made us like her more, but really showed what she's really going through, why she might not be able to resurrect Jon Snow. We see Melisandre, she sits in front of the fire, and she walks toward her table, looks in the mirror, she takes off her dress, she then takes off the amulet around her neck, and becomes an elderly woman, we see. Basically, this necklace, the way that I thought is that that necklace is keeping her young. It's making her look young, it's making her look how she used to, and when she takes off that dress and the necklace, that's who she really is. She's an elderly woman, and that necklace is keeping her young, and she then crawls under the blankets on her bed, and that's how the episode ends. So, very interesting the way this was done. Really crazy stuff overall, but I like that we found out that Melisandre is getting old, and it shows that she might not be able to save Jon Snow. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what they want to do, that Davos thinks they might need her to save Jon Snow, but we don't really know if they can do that. And plus, is the Watch going to be able to survive without Jon Snow? I mean, we know that how powerful Jon Snow was, and how great of a leader he was. Is Davos really going to be as strong as a leader? We don't really know. What's going to happen with you know, Mutton? I mean, he said that he'll give him till nightfall to make a decision, but, you know, Thorne's going to kill them all anyway, and he's really worried that Thorne's going to come after them. But, of course, Davos, I don't think, understands really why Thorne had to kill Jon Snow. And we'll have to see what happens with that, if he realizes why he had to kill Jon Snow, because it's a very complicated situation. Of course, he wasn't there, so he could think that Thorne is lying and that that isn't really what happened, but, you know, the real reality of it is that Jon Snow went too far, and they had to kill him, and there really was no other way to stop this from happening. They had to kill him. They had to make sure that he was killed because he went too far, and there really was no other way to put it. He needed to die, and that's just what had to happen. So he's dead, and, you know, there's really no coming back from that. But it definitely seems like there is going to be a fight between the Watch and Davos, and we'll have to see what happens. That's going to be very interesting. Or Thorne versus the Watch. We'll have to see what happens. That's going to be, I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. Let's talk about, though, Ella Wright, because holy shit, Ella Wright, it's gonna be crazy to see what happens here with Ella Wright. I don't know what's gonna happen, but she is definitely going after the Lannisters. One of them is definitely gonna die. Jaime's dying this season. I'm predicting it now. Cersei's not dying, but Jaime is dying this season. I do not see Jaime getting through the season. I think Jaime, he's gone through a lot, obviously. You know, he's lost between losing an arm and all the thing, you know, now losing his daughter. I think he's gonna lose his life. I mean, you've lost two things, 3 strikes, you're out. That's really how I see it. You know, he's lost his arm, he's lost his daughter, now he's going to lose his life, and I really think that's what's going to happen with Jaime. We've had all this crazy stuff with Jaime, and, you know, we've had Jaime, last season Jaime was in a fairly positive position, but now that Jaime is, like, his life is back in hell, I really think that Jaime's going to die. I really could see that happening, and I think a lot of characters are going to die this season. I think this season really implies, like I said, that no one is really safe, and you can tell that Ella Raya, she definitely is power hungry, she definitely is going to go after, as many, not power hungry, she definitely is desperate for revenge. She's going to go after whoever she wants, and I can't wait to see what happens next, so that's going to be very interesting. Daenerys, because I really like where this direction is headed with Daenerys. As we know, Moro's telling her that, basically, you know, you give me this child and then you can go, but is that really what's going on? Because, you know, he's saying that she needs to be brought back to Dothrak to live out her days, and we'll have to see really how this works out. Is she going to get able to get back to Meereen? I mean, obviously, she wants to get back to Meereen, but we don't really know if she's going to be able to get back there, and obviously, is Tyrion and Varys going to find her? And Jorah has the grayscale, and we know what happens with people with the grayscale. Is Jorah going to die? We'll have to see what happens. I mean, we know that Tyrion had the grayscale, and then it kind of just went away, but Jorah has the grayscale. This is not going to end well. I don't know what's going to happen with Jorah, but we'll have to see what happens with that. as far as Ramsey goes, I mean, Ramsey, that whole situation is crazy what's going to happen with Ramsey. I don't really know what's going to happen with Ramsey, if he's going to get out of it, if, what's going to happen there. Obviously, Ramsey wants to go after Sansa and Theon. Will they be able to get back to King's Landing? I mean, we know that Ramsey is hot on the trail. Basically, he's orchestrating this all himself. He's basically going after them without actually going after them, because he has tons of men, he has tons of people to go after them, and he's going to make sure that Sansa and Theon are, brought back to him, because they're his toys, and they need to be brought to, they're like his pets, and they need to be brought back to him and everything. And that's really how this is going to be. I mean, we know how he treated Theon last season. It was brutal stuff. I mean, he called Theon his pet. He calls him Reek. We know that he just has Sansa because he wants to bear a child. He needs someone to bear a child. He needs an heir, and it's going to be crazy to see what happens there. I mean, obviously, like I said, it is a lot because of his father, but Ramsey is still a vile human being, and it's going to be crazy to see what happens with that, because I really don't know, how that whole situation is going to turn out. It's going to be really sad. I honestly am expecting a lot of tragedy there. So I really don't know what's going to happen with that. And as far as Marjorie goes, how is Marjorie going to get out of this? Because obviously, the High Sparrow is telling her, you're not perfect, but you can be. I don't really know what that means. Is that pointing to maybe Marjorie, there's something else out there for her? There's something that we're not seeing? That's something that I don't really understand. I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. We know that Brienne now has Sansa. We know that she's protected her. We know they're probably going back to King's Landing. Will they find Arya? That's really the big question, is are they going to find Arya? Obviously, we know that Brienne was sent out to look for the Starks, and now looks like she's going to go after Arya and probably find her. But now that Arya's blind, I don't really know if she's going to be able to find her, and that's something I'm definitely interested in seeing. Is she going to find her? Also, is there any way to bring Jon Snow back? I'm pretty sure that Davos is thinking is that they want to use Melisandre to bring back, resurrect Jon Snow, because we know that she can resurrect. But is she getting too old? I mean, that last scene definitely shows a lot of things. It shows how vulnerable she is. It shows she's going through a lot. And I really am wondering if that's really showing that maybe she might not be able to help them. In many ways, I think that is what that's showing, that she might not be able to help them. But we'll have to see what happens with that. I don't know if Melisandre really is going to be able to help them. I think they want her to be able to help them. But can she really? I'm not really sure. Overall, guys, I love this premiere. Nothing wrong with it overall. This is going to be an amazing season. Honestly, I think this is probably going to be the best season. I know I said that last season, but I really have a strong feeling this can be the best one. A lot of this is characters bringing themselves back up and getting themselves out of the situation that they're in. I think they're going to be a significant amount of deaths this season than usual, probably. Probably the most we've had since the Red Wedding, I think, are going to be this season. There were obviously a lot last season between Stannis and Shireen and, Jon Snow. There were a lot last season, but I think there's going to be a lot this season. I mean, knowing especially just those two scenes with Elia killing Dorne, and then Nymeria and Obora killing Trystane, it's really fair game this season with who's going to die. Anyone can die and at any time, and I think that really is what they're saying, that anyone can die at any time this season, anything can happen, and you really can't predict anything in terms of death, which I'm not going to try to. I'm not going to try to predict who's going to die. Jaime, I think, is the only one that I'm like, he definitely is going to die. I don't see Jaime getting out of this season. He definitely, I think, is going to die. But overall, guys, how much you guys saw this premiere? What do you think of this season in general? I cannot wait for this. I cannot wait to see the rest of the season. Anyways, guys, before I finish this video, though, I don't know what happened with my Girlfriend Experience review. If you guys watch my review of the Girlfriend Experience, the first 6 minutes, it works perfectly, like you can hear me and everything, and then it just, suddenly the sound just cuts out, and I don't know what happened. What I'm going to do is I'm going to watch episode 5 tonight, and then I'll probably just do a back-to-back episode 4, episode 5. I apologize for that. I have no idea why that happened. Sometimes this happened to me. It's happened before. I don't know why this happened this time, but we'll have to see what happens, but I'll see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. I don't think it'll happen again. That'd be really stupid if it did. Hopefully this video is not like that either. But overall, guys, so much guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Fear the Walking Dead, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.